Alright, so now that our background's done, the next step that we're going to do is we're going to start working on our actual leaf now. So I still have my white, all the same colors that I've been using for the background and even for the shadows and for the underpainting. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to still keep working on that, but I'm going to add in some layers. However, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on painting the veins of this leaf, because if you look carefully at the veins, you'll see that they're not pure white. They're light, but they're not white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of water right now. And obviously the only thing that's a little bit wet right now are just my normal colors. So I'm going to take some yellow, take a little bit of that yellow ochre with it, and I need to tone that down a good chunk. So, and I'm going to grab tiny little bit of blue. Okay, just getting some white. So because I'm going to do this as a little bit of an underpainting to some degree, I'm just going to, it might be a little bit darker, but that'll be okay. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to work on just painting those in. So get a little bit more water than normal, just to kind of give them a good base color. Just something other than that white. So, and I'm just going over that area, those areas where I had them left white, just kind of going over that quickly. Okay, so now that that's done, my next step that I'm going to start to do is I'm going to just start to work on my leaf as a whole. So as I start to work on it, one of the things that I want to really start to look at, obviously, is just the shape between the veins and stuff like that. So, and as I do that, obviously, it's really interesting because when you look at it carefully, there's a lot of different stuff kind of going on. So the first thing that I notice is down here, for instance, right underneath the one vein, it starts to have some dark kind of colors to it. But again, I'm not using black. Notice I don't have any black on my palette. So what I want to start to do is, again, I'm going to start to layer this in a little bit at a time. And so as I work, I'm going to probably not use this small little brush. That would not make much sense. I'm going to grab a bigger brush. And again, I'm going to try to create my color. I'm going to grab some blue. I'm going to grab a little bit of red because I know it's going to help tone down that color. So right now I've obviously made purple. But as I add that green, you can see what happens there. So now I'm going to add some of that yellow ochre, which will also help tone it down some. So what I'm going to do, this is going to be a really dark color to start off with. So I want to look to see where the darkest parts of my, and I might just add a drop of water, only just to kind of help keep it fluid. So I'm just going to come in, and this is going to be where it's going to take a little bit of time. So if you've made your color so it's a little bit darker, you're probably going to start off with your, where your darks are. And for this part, I'm just using a round brush. Nothing fancy about it. And I'm just looking right now along my edges is where I'm starting to notice this. And again, I'm going to grab another little bit of water, just a tiny drop. Get that on my brush. I don't add a ton of water. I try to be really careful with that when I am painting with acrylic, because it will just water down the paint. And then it'll, not really do anything. But I do want to kind of use it every once in a while to help me out. And then I notice I have right down here, I didn't draw that vein in, but I have a dark kind of like edge, basically. I'm going to work on putting that in. So right now I'm just going to focus on where my darks are at, my super dark areas at least. And again, you can see without black how that already, doesn't look, it looks dark, but it doesn't look black. So we want to try to avoid using black if we can. So if you only have the primary colors, black and white, if you just try mixing all the primaries together, you will find that you'll be able to create like a brownish color. So then if you create your green, you can make that work, one way or the other. So you can kind of push and pull that as you try to make that green, that dark green, I should say. So again, as you're painting right now, what you want to be thinking about is, kind of what's going on in that leaf in and of itself. So notice next to the veins how, it does get kind of dark at times. And so what are you going to do? How are you going to show that? So again, not just thinking it's all going to be one big flat color. It does change a lot. So as I'm working on these edges, I'm really trying to be careful too to not go over where I had my shadows. I'm going to come up to this one. And I probably would suggest using a smaller brush. I'm finding out very hard that this brush is actually a little too big for what I'm doing. So just work on painting in. Maybe it's you want to start with your darks like I am. Maybe you're starting with something else. But again, just for now, work on painting in and just kind of, working on the next step of completing this leaf so it actually looks like the picture. So I have a lot of my dark areas done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in and I'm just going to start working on adding in more. I started to make a different color that's not as dark, but it will probably be still, it's still kind of dark enough. So I'm going to add just a tiny bit of white into it just to help lighten it up. I want to be kind of careful with that though. And the color that I used, or how I made this color, was using a little bit of just the blue, the medium yellow, and a drop of red. And I did that because I wanted to have, need to tone down my color. So it sounds really weird to add red to green, but it helps to tone everything down a little bit. And so I'm going to come in right now and I'm going to work on just putting in the colors that I have down here. So sometimes I'm going to have to make some stuff kind of quickly. So right now I just need a little bit of yellow because this gets a little lighter right here. So as I add that in, I want that to be, again, with acrylic, we know we have to work a little fast. So I'm trying to now just paint. As I'm painting in these, this leaf, I'm trying to look at what I see for it and how I can kind of continue making it lighter where I need to make it lighter, making it darker where I need to make it darker. But you can see I'm going over what I've painted already, so it's helping just to give me a good base for everything. And now that my dark is going to fade out some, come in and you can see that this color that I had is honestly pretty close to what was my base, which is good. And even though I have some extra paint on my brush, I'm just letting that go. It's not a big deal. So, and I've changed brushes. So if I need to come in and add some more shadow, or if I need to blend that shadow out, I can do that a little bit easier now as well because I've changed my brush. I definitely like smaller brushes when I'm working with a lot of details. I'm doing here. This is more of a medium green right now. So again, kind of working on grabbing a little bit of yellow when I need to. And sometimes I don't really mix it on my palette. I just let it work on the paper because it is wet. So as I'm looking at my picture, trying to really see how these colors are all working together. How are they blending? Because again, each part of this leaf has a different way it looks. So down below, it's catching even more light a little bit in some places. So right underneath where that highlight is, or that shadow is, excuse me. I'm gonna come in here. Again, as I add that in, and I'm finding that trying to give this a little bit of texture, so not making my brush go smooth the whole time, but kind of, you can see how I'm kind of just dabbing it almost in a sense. It's also going to help too. So again, because there's some extra colors going on, I'm not trying to make it all smooth. So I'm seeing where I need to add some color, grabbing something else if I need to, just to keep those lights open. Notice I haven't used a lot of white on this, really, and I would suggest, you know, not really trying to use a lot of white. You probably won't need it. You'll probably be surprised at how little white you will need. And again, you can see I'm kind of working on that. So again, this is what you're going to be focusing on just for today, is working on getting, you know, the leaf painted as realistic as you can see from the photo. So sometimes you're going to need to have, you know, yellow on your brush. Sometimes you're going to need to have, you know, your darker green mixture. It's just going to be a lot of just working back and forth, trying to figure out what it is that you need for that specific area that you're working on.